Alright, so this one's on kind of the four categories of life: labor, leisure, play, and rest. And once I learned about this topic, I thought it was very beneficial to me because I could see how I was using my time and how your life is categorized into these four things that you always have to do. So, I guess let's start with labor. That's work, toil. You're producing, using energy for. It's the opposite of rest. It's your typical, you have to, go to a job to provide the resources you need to survive, or consumable goods that you need. So everyone has to work. Everyone needs to labor at some point. I mean, there's only two portions of your life where you won't be in labor, which is infancy, where you're a child. You have everything provided by someone else's labor. And then I guess when you're elderly or senile or to a point where someone else has to provide for you because you're too old or you retired. And those are the points that you're not in labor, not working. And labor is associated with an obligation and lack of freedom. And you also get a compensation for it. You're doing some task, some duty that they give you. It's a form of servitude. And you're doing either mental work or physical work. As you go back in time, it was all physical work, and then now it's a lot more mental work, or sometimes a mix of both of them. And a lot of people kind of define themselves in a way by their labor, and it kind of creates these like social classes that derives from your labor, how much wealth you get, your status, your respect, what your job is. And I think most people usually want to move up to a higher job so that their labor isn't as drudgery. There's a certain drudgery to the lower forms of labor where you can't take it anymore. You're looking at the clock to leave every day. Your job seems kind of meaningless in a way. The compensation that you're getting for your work doesn't really match. It's like you do all this labor, spend all this energy, and then you get a low compensation, which you don't feel like you're really fulfilling your true purpose. But I guess it's kind of man's curse since the garden that we're going to toil and you have to labor in order to survive. So that's the first category, is work and labor. And the opposite of labor is rest. And there's a difference between sleep and rest. They're very, closely correlated, obviously. But whatever rest is just the opposite of labor. You labor so you can rest. And your labor expends your energy, you use your energy for it to produce something, get a compensation out of it. And then you rest to replenish your energy, to renew your energy. The word Sabbath, like the Sabbath day, literally means not laboring or rest. It's the opposite of work. Like you think about someone goes on a sabbatical, they work for 7 years, they're on a sabbatical for 1 year, means they're doing the opposite of labor, they're not working. So the Sabbath is rest, restoration. You kind of recharge your mind and body. Sleep is just a state where you're inactive, and you go through these different cycles in sleep where you have the REM cycles, and sometimes you don't get true rest if you don't get through all the cycles, and sometimes you do get true rest. So there's labor, work, and there's rest, which is the opposite of labor. And then there's play, which is entertainment. It's usually passive. You're consuming something. It's amusement. And you think about the word muse, how it's kind of a never-ending state that it has no end to it. You're just filling your mind with something that's pleasurable, is pleasing your senses. It can be a form of relaxation or recreation. You're just consuming something. It's kind of more associated with children, because they're constantly just playing, but they're not doing work and they're not resting. They're just kind of playing, which is useful, but it gets your mind off of labor or relaxes you or entertains you. But it can become to a point where you're filling your mind and time with so much play that you're just becoming slothful like a child, and you're not actually doing anything with your life, and you're wasting your time, and it's just consuming your time with no end to it. Like, you think about people that get addicted to these video games or Netflix or even music, sometimes Spotify, how it's just a never-ending muse that's just amusing you, and it can just go on forever. I mean, even people on YouTube, you're on YouTube and you just keep watching videos or doom scrolling on, Instagram, TikTok, all these social media things that just, they attract your mind to these pleasures, but they don't ever end. It's just an infinite entertainment. And that can be dangerous, but it's also useful and, to get your mind off the serious things. It's the opposite of being serious or working. You're just playing. And then the fourth category, which I save for last because it's kind of the highest good, I guess, the best use of your time, is your leisure time. And leisure time, the word leisure means literally free time. It's associated with freedom. So you have your labor, which is not freedom. You don't have freedom in the sense that you're either under a contract that you have to do a certain amount of things. You're under the clock for a certain amount of time where they kind of own you. They decide what you do with your time. You're obligated to a duty, but you don't have any freedom. You just do the task that they tell you to do. It's kind of got a slavish mentality to it. And people that aren't compensated for their labor are slaves. That's what indentured servitude is, where they have to do all this work, but they're not given anything for it. They're just in bondage. They have no freedom. Leisure, so the working class was the slaves before, there wasn't slavery anymore, or before the pre-industrial times, before we had machines or the Industrial Revolution. But you go back in time to the slaves or even animals, there's a correlation between labor and kind of what animals do. All they do is labor their whole lives. But the difference in humans is that we have leisure, we have free time. We can do things other than labor and sleep and things to just survive. We can do things with our free time. So the difference in play and leisure is play is just this passive or active entertainment use of your time that has no end to it. But leisure is like the highest use of your time that does have an end to it. You have growth and learning, and you're doing something that's not hard work. I mean, it can be hard, but it's not like this task that you're given for a compensation that you just hate. You're kind of doing it freely. You have a freedom to it, but it's also not play where it's just, wasting your time or just consuming something. You're actually creating something. It's something useful with your time. And the word leisure, I think the root word in the Greek is skole, which means free time, learning, and it's where we get the word school. And school is kind of associated with work in our minds because it's just it's not what we want to be doing with our time. We'd rather be playing when we're in school. But as you get older and you get out of school, you realize how important it is and how useful it was. And you'll always be learning, and leisure is kind of associated with schooling and learning. It's free time, but it's also a good use of your free time. It enriches your life, it improves your life, it improves your mind. You're learning a skill, it's associated with like the liberal arts, this freedom of the arts, or like skills or crafts or things you learn that will be useful for you. So you think about your own life, the labor that you're doing, most people usually hate, and everything on social media or popular culture tries to sell you on this dream or like this fantasy that you don't have to work, or that your work will be so reduced that you'll have financial freedom where you can leave the 9 to 5 of the wage slave. And that's just a lie. I mean, they're making money to sell you on this fantasy that you won't have to do your horrible job that you hate. And I also thought about, say you're miserable in a job, you have freedom to leave the job, I mean, once you enter in this job, you enter into a contract that you're going to agree to do whatever they tell you to do. And if you disagree with it so much, you hate it so much, you do have the freedom to leave. But most people don't want to leave because they feel stuck. Because, like, I can't just quit my job. It's unrealistic. I have bills to pay. I have, I can't just, it's not easy to find another job. Well, it's easier said than done, but you're putting yourself in your own situation of you hate your boss, you hate your employees, you hate your job. You can look for other jobs. You can find another job. And as long as you're under this contract or working for this employer, you kind of have to do what they tell you to do. I mean, you don't have a lot of freedom in that way. I mean, obviously, if it comes to the point where it's ruining your life, you need to quit. But most people want to find another job before they quit so they can have stability. But don't get stuck in this miserable state of, I'm stuck here forever. No, you can leave. You can find other jobs. You can look for other jobs. There's this story, Sisyphus, I might be saying the name wrong, or it's this Greek story, I guess, of the gods that punished Sisyphus for he was deceitful and tried to cheat. He cheated death twice or something. Anyways, he has to carry this stone up a mountain, and this right before he gets to the peak of the mountain, it rolls down, and then it repeats infinitely. He constantly has to, push the stone, the boulder, up the mountain. It comes back down, and it's just an infinite repeat. And it's kind of a picture of like unending labor, and it's futile. You're doing this task that has no end to it, no meaning to it, and you're just going insane. I mean, that's like the definition of insanity, where you're just doing the same thing over and over and over and over, and it's got no purpose to it. And most people in their jobs, not all people, I mean, when you're younger, a man or woman, and you're in some job that you don't want to be in long term, you're always looking to that end job that gives you a purpose, that's worth your time, you get highly compensated for it, and you're kind of always striving for that. But every job you're in is kind of miserable. I mean, you just hate it. You can't wait to get out of there. And I don't know if there is really a perfect job. I think almost every job you're going to have the feeling of like, I hate this. I mean, there's levels of how much you'll hate it, but it's kind of a lie about like you love what you do and it'll just be like not work to you. I mean, there's certain aspects where you do enjoy what you're, your purpose that you're doing, and you do enjoy the result of your job. Say it's helping other people, or you love what you do. But at the end of the day, it's always going to be labor. It's always going to be a job. But there's always going to be the aspect that you hated, and that it just depletes your energy. That's what labor is. It depletes your energy. Also, I guess when you think about when people die, they say rest in peace. It's almost like they've been cut off from the burdens of this life, where they're going to have heavenly rest, or now they can rest, no more work. And I mean, I guess this whole life is constantly toiling and working towards something, and that will just kind of never change. It's just a part of life, is your labor. But if you balance these four things, then you can ease them, that you don't have too much of them. You have a mean, stable amount of each one. If you have the right amount of labor and the right amount of rest and the right amount of leisure and the right amount of play, then you can have a stable, life. Kind of like Aristotle's The Golden Mean. You need to balance each one of them. If you have too much of one or too little of one, you can just kind of get everything off balance, and you're kind of miserable. So I want to read like 3 different things. There's one that's from the Declaration of Independence that I think really brings home the 4 aspects of life. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So you have life, which is to exist. You have the right of life from your Creator. You have the right of liberty, which is freedom to act, to think, to speak, to do things freely. And then this pursuit of happiness. And I think after looking at these 4 things and reading about Aristotle and leisure, I think he places leisure at the highest good, and that's basically what the pursuit of happiness is leisure. And really it's the pursuit to seek truth. In your leisure time, I was trying to think of, activities that would be defined as like leisure time, like what's the best use of your time? Things that are causing you to grow or improve your mind, personal excellence, reflection, learning, friendship, contemplation. And let me read to you from Aristotle's Ethics, and he's talking about happiness. And he's also talking about leisure as well. The title of this is book 10 in the Ethics, chapter 7. He says, happiness is the highest sense. Happiness in the highest sense is the contemplative life. And let me just read you a portion where he's talking about happiness. I just gotta find it real quick. Happiness, therefore, does not lie in amusement, which would be like play. It would indeed be strange if the end were amusement, and one were to take trouble and suffer hardship all one's life in order to amuse oneself. So he's saying these pleasures and play and amusement and just filling your mind with things that are just a waste is like, why would you work for the amusement? Why would you work for infinite pleasure? It's not for pleasure. Now, to exert oneself in work for the sake of amusement seems silly and utterly childish, but to amuse oneself in order that one may exert oneself seems right. For amusement is a sort of relaxation, and we need relaxation because we cannot work continuously. Relaxation, then, is not an end, for it is taken for the sake of activity. So he was saying that we don't work so that we can have infinite entertainment. That would be like what a child does. They want infinite entertainment. They just constantly want to play, but they never want to work, and they never want to do something useful with their time. But play is also important too, to like give you an imagination. And there's one other part I was going to read. That one was in chapter 6. This was in chapter 7, the next part. And happiness is thought to depend on leisure, for we are busy that we may have leisure, and make war that we live in peace. But such a life would be too high for man, for it is not insofar as he is man that he will live so, but insofar as something divine is present in him, and by so much as this is superior to our composite nature, is its activity superior to that which is the exercise of the other kind of virtue. If reason is divine, then, in comparison with man, the life according to it is divine in comparison with the human life. So he's basically saying that leisure is the highest good, and that's what leads to happiness. And in correlation with the Declaration of Independence, it was life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think the pursuit of happiness is your leisure time. It's seeking the truth. It's seeking happiness, but capital H happiness, not just temporary happiness, but ultimate happiness, which is what really benefits your life. Labor, it will give you the things you need to survive, maybe even give you certain pleasures for play, Rest will replenish your energy for the labor. It will renew your mind. Everyone needs rest. You think about the Sabbath day in Genesis, where God rested on the seventh day, which is a day of rest, a day to replenish yourself. And you need leisure as well. And some practical things for leisure time, I guess, would be something, I don't know if there's digital things that can be defined as leisure, but reading the great books, the classics, I would say, is a good use of time. Maybe some type of craft, art, or skill that you can learn that's beneficial, maybe like learning a musical instrument, or maybe even type like carpentry or woodwork, or something that's a little bit challenging to you, that you have to use your mind to grow, but it's also kind of fun to learn it, and it's not like, I hate this. I mean, yeah, there'll be hard parts to learning, but leisure is enjoyable learning. I mean, it's an enjoyable growth. And let me read you one more thing. One thing I forgot to mention was about how, when I was talking about how laborers are associated with the animals, how they just labor and rest. And that's why slavery was so wrong, because you're treating them like an animal, that they work and then they sleep and then they eat and then they just repeat over again with no freedom. And we actually use the source of power in labor with animals. You know how they use the oxen to, pull the plow, or all the things we use animals for our labor. We allow them to do our labor, and now it's got to the point where we have the machines that are doing our labor, and we're always trying to reduce the labor. I mean, the dream life is like less labor and ultimate compensation. Everyone kind of is jealous of the billionaires or the people that they don't need the labor because they just have infinite supply of everything. But that can also give you a lack of purpose and duty. And I mean, you think about people that retire, and sometimes mostly the men, they want to go back to work or do something else with their time, or a different type of work, because they're losing their mind every day. Like, there's only so much play you can take where you're like, I need something to do with my time. Let me read you one other poem. This is Ralph Waldo Emerson essay on compensation, and this has to do with your work that you get compensated for. Labor is watched over by the same pitiless laws. Cheapest to the prudent is the dearest labor. I'll skip a little bit down because he's talking about all the things you can buy. You multiply your presence, spread yourself out through your estate, but because of the dual constitution of things, and labor as in life, there can be no cheating. The thief steals from himself, the swindler swindles himself. The real price of labor is knowledge and virtue, whereof wealth and credit are signs. These signs, like paper money, may be counterfeited or stolen, but that which they represent, namely knowledge and virtue, cannot be counterfeited or stolen. These ends of labor cannot be answered, but real exertions of the mind and an obedience to pure motives. The law of nature is, do the thing, and you shall have the power. But they who do not the thing have not the power. Human labor, through all its forms, from the sharpening of a stake to the construction of a city or an epic, is one immense illustration of the perfect compensation of the universe, the absolute balance of give and take, the doctrine that everything has its price. If that price is not paid, not that thing but something else is obtained, and that it is impossible to get anything without its price, is not less sublime in the columns of a leisure than in the budgets of states, laws of light and darkness, and all the action and reaction of nature. I cannot doubt that the high laws which each man sees implicated in those processes with which he is conversant, the stern ethics which sparkle on his chisels, which are measured out by his plumb and foot rule, which stand out as a manifest in the footing of the shop bill, as in the history of a state, do recommend to him his trade, and though solemn named, exalt his business to his imagination. So he's talking about human labor in all its forms, and it's the perfect compensation of give and take. The doctrine that everything has its price, and if that price is not paid, something else is obtained. It's impossible to get anything without its price. So everything has a give and take to it, and you want your labor to be representative of your work and your time, and you want to be proud in your labor. I mean, these jobs that are just embarrassing or like not worth your time, it's just hard to take sometimes. But just recognize that you have to labor. Work for a better job, obviously, but there's no perfect job. And once you get off of work, really plan your time that you can use your time well and benefit something from your life. And the ultimate use of your time is your leisure time, your free time that you spend to do something beneficial for your life. And don't spend it on too much, just play and get proper rest and balance these four things, these four categories of life. Everything in your life will be categorized in these four things, and there's certain things that are kind of it's hard to define it and which one is this really, But for the most part, I mean, like the duties that you have to do, the chores that you have to do would be work or labor. Leisure is something you're obligated to do, but you're free to do it. Play is you have no obligation to do it, but you're free to do it. So it has to do with freedom. I mean, the slaves were the working class. The leisure class was the free men of society. And I guess if you look back of all the things that were discovered or invented, or mathematics, the Egyptians and stuff, it was the leisure class that had time to even deal with those high arts, because the slaves were doing all the work, doing all the drudgery and all the labor. And then you look at the Renaissance, where they had all this leisure time that they could actually study this stuff. They could experiment and, you know, spend their time learning and growing and discovering, exploring. And now we've gotten to a point where basically everyone is free. We have all this leisure time. We have too much leisure time that we don't even know what to do with. And everyone's just kind of wasting it. They're wasting the free time that they do have. I mean, there's still jobs where you work crazy hours, but not like back in the day where they'd work from sunrise to sundown and then have to go to bed, you know. Now it's like we have a lot more free time than we realize, but we're wasting it. So spend your time wisely and really recognize what you're spending your time on. Are you spending hours on the internet, or something that you just go back to, that, you know, TV, people watch shows and movies that are they just fill their time with, and you really have so much time that you're wasting, and you could be using it for something so much better. You should use the play or the time that's entertainment with people, or on certain occasions where you can relax and just hang out with people or just enjoy something. But if you're living for that, you go to work just to come home and watch Netflix every day, you're not growing and you're not gonna find fulfillment. That's the other thing about leisure time and the pursuit of happiness, or the pursuit of truth. You find fulfillment and purpose in that, in seeking something beyond your normal daily tasks. That's true fulfillment and purpose. People usually conflict the purpose with their labor, and they think their job is their identity, and everything I'm doing for my job is like, you know, that's my purpose. And yeah, it can be related, as in you have a certain duty, you know, you want to be a teacher or a nurse or a lawyer, or there's a certain purpose related to your work, but it's not your full identity in your labor. I mean, your identity is in what you do outside of work too, in your leisure time, and you can do great things. I mean, you can learn brand new skills, or just get like a hobby that it's usually related to a hobby. I mean, something that you just get good at, or you just really enjoy spending your time. A lot of the fine arts are related to leisure time, you know, painting, writing, but there's other times there's other ways of leisure as well. In a sense, you're usually learning, you're usually growing, and there's also reflection involved, and contemplation, and you're thinking. And there's this book called Flow. It's called Flow, and it's about the flow state. And I really think that's a perfect correlation to the leisure time. It's a state that your mind gets in where your brain is not overly challenged, so you just don't want to do it or can't do it, but it's not low stimulation where it's just kind of like passive time. It's in between. It's this perfect state where you're just kind of like very productive, and you're in the zone, and you're just in a flow state, and it's this kind of equilibrium state. Your brain is just, I don't know if you've ever, the flow state is when you're not trying to get started. It's what you can't get started. You know, you're staring at the blank Word document or whatever just to write this essay or do this work, but it's not, you're exhausted, but it's also you're not doing nothing. So you're perfectly in between where you're just working and just producing. And that's what I think about when I think about leisure time, is you're just in a flow state, and you're working, you're moving, and sometimes you have like a timer on, you know, people do like a study timer or something, and you don't even care about the timer. You're just in the zone. Like you can get whatever you need to get done, you're going to get it done because you're just moving at a certain pace. And you need to set yourself up in an environment where you get into that flow state, where you just get things done. And it's kind of a creative mode too, where they're just ideas are coming to you, where you're just in that perfect state where you're just creating. And then when you're out of that state, you're like, I don't even know what just happened, but this is what I did. And it's all those things that are completed. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I think it's a really good way to categorize your time and what you should be doing with your time. And I think it's really just useful to know in your life. Your labor is more than just to produce wealth. That's the main part of it. If you read Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, he talks a lot about labor and leisure and the economy and different types of labor. There's unproductive labor that just is not producing anything. There's productive labor that makes the economy go, that we're all kind of like working together in the market, free market. There's a lot of these jobs today where they just have no end to them, no purpose, and it's kind of useless. And then there's even jobs where people are getting overcompensated, but they're like not putting the work in. I mean, you can even see it in YouTube and these influencer jobs, or these like bratty kids that are just wasting their time and making millions, and it's like, that's crazy. And then meanwhile, you're doing like actual hard work, and then you feel like you're not even getting compensated right for it. But keep growing, keep using your time well and improving, and you're going to move to the next stage. You're not going to be stuck in this job forever. You're going to get out of it. But don't spend your time complaining about how you hate this job and you're miserable. Anytime you get out of work, you're going to be exhausted, but you have to find time to get energy to work to get out of that job. Some certification, look for other jobs, some type of schooling. You don't have the money for the schooling, you don't know which school, you got to look for them. And you got to get out of that job. You can't stay there forever. If you stay there, the longer you stay there, it will start defeating your spirit to the point where you don't even want to get out of there. And you're just in this bondage. That's what the story of Sisyphus is. It's just bondage. You're doing this mundane thing that has no purpose, and you just do it infinitely. You don't want to get stuck. You want to get out of there. And you might have to stay there for a little bit just to survive, which is how everyone starts out. I mean, no one starts out and they're at that end job that's the ultimate career of, I love my job so much, I make all this money off of it. No, that you have to work your way up to that, and you have to do the lower jobs first. And don't put too much emphasis on your job as in like this is your whole identity. Just realize you're spending this time to get this money, to get out of there, so you can work to the next thing, so you can pay your bills, so you can eat, have shelter, whatever you need to do. But don't be distracted by everything that's going on, this horrible job, the sucky coworkers, the sucky boss, the terrible environment. Don't focus on it. It's a distraction. It's distracting you from your higher purpose to get out of there and to do a better job and to do something you want to do, and just use it as a means to an end. And you'll move on to something bigger and better. I can guarantee it. Peace.